Take this job and shove it. It ain't working here no more. Ow, ow, ow. I got that song going through my head. You ever get a song like stuck in your head? Oh my god, I had a Meatloaf song stuck in my head one time. I don't even like the guy. It was just I didn't want to think about it because it's gonna get stuck back in there. Then you gotta listen to the damn song over and over and over again to get it unstuck from your head. Anyway, I like my job, so I'm not shoving anything. When it comes to that, how you guys doing out there in La La Land? You see what's going on throughout the world. It certainly is a huge steaming shit sandwich. But here we like to think about other things. If we can focus on it. I'm gonna say Windigo. The Windigo. Not long ago I was talking about skinwalkers, right? And that's, mainly southwest New Mexico, northern New Mexico, especially around Shiprock, places like that. There's a lot of accounts of skinwalkers, and then every tribe's got a different name for them, basically. But you can find threads like Navajo threads where they go on there constantly and say, "Hey, I saw one on this road, or saw one up there in the treetops, or one running up on the ridge." So, and then you got to think a lot of it's probably just bunk, right? People messing around and having fun, but then there's that percentage that is real. You can't think 100% of it's bunk. That's kind of boring. So then you get the shows, Skinwalker Ranch, and all this other stuff. And I've never even seen an episode. I can't watch that stuff because I know what it is. It's not made for someone like me. So it's I'd rather occupy my time doing something else. So I like real stuff, and I like I don't have to sell advertising. So you know, and on top of that, the subjects that I pick are I think that they're interesting, and I really get into it. And these are things that I know something about for the most part. And you know what? If I don't, that's fine too. I learn a lot about it. I've done shows of things that subjects that I wasn't really heavy on, and even before the show, I like to collect my information. I skim through it. I make sure it's what I want, but I like to also read it cold, so I have the reaction in there. And I've learned a lot from the show. So if we can keep learning in life and keep going forward, that's the best thing. So the Windigo, you see, Michael, the hell is a Windigo? Now, this came about because I was looking at trail cam pictures. I like to look at people's trail cam photos sometimes. Not the normal, the odd ones, right? The ones that they don't know what the hell was in there. Then yeah, there's people who spoof it all the time. There's trail cam pphotos that have like R2D2 and Chewbacca walking through the woods, stuff like that. Sure, okay. There's people that a lot of people like to have fun. There's people that love to hoax. They do it all day long. I mean, think about the whole Bigfoot thing and how people love to hoax other people. There's people who have admitted to it. They made the big feet out of plaster of Paris. They put a few prints out in the woods. Hunters found it, and usually the one guy in Tennessee, he owned the local store. And everybody came flocking there. He made a ton of money because he was able to hoax people into some kind of search for this Bigfoot, right? But there's trail cam photos, and you could Photoshop anything these days. You don't even have to be an expert. You could just be some regular old whatever and go learn Photoshop in a few minutes and be able to start cutting and pasting and placing images, right? But the stories, it's the stories and the sounds, what people hear, and also the feeling when something isn't right. You get that feeling. When something is out of the ordinary, something unusual, especially if you're very sensitive, you get that feeling. So these guys got this trail cam footage of this thing, and I've also seen video footage of this walking across the road, and it looks like its arms and legs are kind of reversed, and it moves along, not like what a person would move on two legs. It walks on all four, and it's got like a human skull and whatever. And these are the stories that surround this of like the Windigo, the description of it, right? A lot of people will see the Windigo with with horns. In this particular image, it's not doesn't have any horns. But what is the Wendigo? Okay, Wendigo is a mythological creature or evil spirit which originates from the folklore of the First Nations based in and around the East Coast forests of Canada, the Great Plains regions of the United States, and also the Great Lakes region, which is where I am right now. So if you think about the indigo, and I've heard a lot of stories, of this was all Native American territory at one time, and Sullivan's March. George Washington told General Sullivan to go up to the Finger Lakes and kill all the Indians, men, women, children, much like what you see in the Ukraine, except they didn't have the big bombs. They just used the bayonets or whatever they did. It was carnage and terrible and horrible and disgusting and a very horrible part of our history, and the history of mankind, I'd say also. So because of that, you have a lot of this negative energy. It's very difficult or impossible to remove that type of stuff sometimes, and then you hear the stories from people in the forest. There's an area closer to Ithaca, uh, that has a place called Connecticut Hill. It's got witches buried there and all kinds of folklore and stories. People go up there and party, and they've seen weird things and heard weird things. There's lots of stories. Let's just say lots of stories, right? And the stories are fun. They're fun to listen to. Otherwise, like I said, life is boring. You know, I mean, who the hell just wants to, work and sleep and eat and that's it? And you got to have something to spice things up, especially when it comes down to weirdness. I love weirdness. You want to tell me a weird story? I'm all ears. And especially if you could back it up with information, and especially if I can triangulate that information. You give me a few different sources that we can kind of cover each other. That makes it even more interesting. Have I ever seen Windigo? No. Have I ever seen a skinwalker? No. I know someone who had encounter with a skinwalker who was not your storyteller type of guy. He was an agricultural hillbilly from Farmington, New Mexico, who was driving through Shiprock down to Gallup, and he was a friend's father. And the story had just come about. There was no internet then. There was nothing like that. And there was just an encounter where this thing was running next to his truck, clawing at him, trying to get him with glowing eyes and all that. And he sped up 80 miles an hour and he took off. But he said the thing was running around 60, 65 miles an hour, trying to get at him. This guy even had a rifle across the back window of his truck. Didn't even grab it. It happened so fast and so quick and whatever. And he said whatever it was trying to claw at him. When he got to Gallup, there was finally a gas station, because in those days there was like nothing between Gallup and Shiprock, or Gallup and Farmington. A lot of just open Native American territory. And during the day, I think there was like a gas station that was kind of in the middle. Now it's different. It was used to be the road used to be called Route 666. If that gives you any kind of inkling of what was going on there. But they changed it to something like 456. I don't know what the hell they call it now, but been a long time since I've been up and down that road, and I had been up and down the road. Nothing mystical happened, but so he got to that gas station and then he pulled in and got out and looked at his truck, and he actually saw like fingernail marks in his paint and blood on the side. That's crazy, man. That's why you have to have a nice, like, big fat 10 millimeter Glock when you're out there. If you live out in the sticks, you live in the city or whatever, you got cops around. Whatever good that does, they're around, But when you're out in the sticks, you're by yourself, man. You are by yourself. And this dude had a gun, and he couldn't even like get it, or whatever. He didn't even think of it. He said because he was like terrified of looking at that face. It's the fear. It's the feeling. What did you feel? I never got the chance to talk to him, but it's a great story nonetheless, right? So the Wendigo, the evil spirit, and you know, basically the Wendigo is often said to be just a malevolent spirit, sometimes depicted as a creature with human-like characteristics which possesses human beings. The Wendigo is known to invoke feelings of insatiable greed, hunger, the desire to cannibalize other humans, as well as the propensity to commit murder in those that fall under its influence. Kind of like Wall Street, you know what I mean? Wall Street. at odds with its portrayals in the 20th century and 21st century. The settler culture. In some indigenous representations, the Windigo is described as a giant humanoid with a heart of ice, a foul stench, or sudden, unseasonable chill might precede its approach, possibly due to long time identifications by Europeans and their own superstitions about werewolves. So they're thinking like some of those things kind of melted together. Stories do, man. Stories definitely. Jesus Christ got the same story as 12 other deities. You know what I mean, including Horus, the Egyptian god, and the Egyptian king or whatever it was. Same story, same, like identical actually. So but people tend to mold things together. Yeah, they're limited. Everybody's Spielberg. You know what I mean? So the Hollywood film representations often label human beast hybrids featuring antlers or horns with the Windigo name, but such animal features do not appear in the original indigenous stories. So you see a lot of drawings. Now, the skinwalkers, they say, take on the animal figure. So it could have those antlers, it could have a wolf type of look, that type of thing. But the Windigo were these creatures that were bald, big giant eyeballs, and nasty sharp teeth, because they rip into stuff, claws like claws, but they have like human arms and legs, but their joints are reversed, so your elbow would go the opposite way, the knee would go the opposite way. And that's how they walk. Like that one video footage that this thing just ran across the road, just like that. That was shaped like that, looked like that. And it was from northern Minnesota, where it's like the sticks, you know what I mean? That whole area up there, or Michigan, and you go, yeah, I think it was Michigan, northern Michigan, way up. I don't know, in some panhandle up there in the woods. That's where they saw that. And you hear these stories from Canada. You hear the stories, some of them from the Finger Lakes. I would say that they're more that central Canadian, like I said, northern panhandle, the real deep woods, the woods that people don't really venture into. The Finger Lakes, any of these places around here have been traversed multiple times. There's not much you can hide, or not many places to hide, because people hike and they do their thing and they're going out there. There's a lot of that, and especially the overbuilding of civilization, X amount of houses and this and that. So the nature tends to get encroached upon, and it recedes, right? You go up to the Adirondacks and you still find vast woods, vast forests, that type of thing. And so a lot of it's inaccessible. You really have to, if you want to get in there, you gotta be pretty creative, but out west or north, or like I said, up there, especially in Canada, you know not that many people. I think they're like 30 million people in Canada, a little bit more. That's not that many people, and it's a big country, so. But I've heard these stories, and maybe they're beer filled, maybe they're full of weed, maybe they're not, maybe they're real, But there's also real attacks that they get talked about. So, all right. So in modern psychiatry, the Windigo lends its name to a form of psychosis known as Wendigo psychosis, which is characterized symptoms such as an intense craving for human flesh and an intense fear of becoming a cannibal. Luckily, I've never experienced those things. Ugh. Wendigo psychosis is described as a culture bound syndrome. I had a friend who was dating this girl, and she kept talking about how much she wanted to eat his flesh. I was like, dude, you need to break up with her right away. Well, don't walk, you run. You meet some girl. Hey, what do you like to eat? I like Chinese food, and some pizza. Okay, let's go out to dinner. You mean a girl? What do you like to eat? I want to eat your flesh. Next, next. Thank you, thank you, but no. He's gonna start looking in that vegetarian section next. You know what I mean? So, in a lot of the First Nations communities, and other symptoms such as insatiable greed and construction, but they all had the fact is they had a name for it. They had a psychosis name for it. They connected it to this thing. So, and it's not just called the Windigo. Windigo is just one. It's Windigo, Wendigo, Wendigo, Windigo, and Wingo, Windago. I don't know. I'm not going to read them all to you. There's a whole bunch of them. So anything Winda, you could pretty much put right on this, right? So, and let's see. And then also the Pacific Northwest people, the Athabascan people, call it the We Wichung, and it's the same type of thing. So, but let's see. And then I don't know. I like all these. They're not just stories, and yeah, people tell stories in cultures, especially to scare kids and keep them in line. Don't go on the edge of the village because there's going to be this thing out there that's going to eat you up alive. So, all right, the Windigo. This is the original description of what it looks like, which is what was interesting to me because this was very interesting because this photo of the trail cams. This thing looks just like what this is described. So the Windigo was gaunt to the point of emaciation. Its desiccated skin pulled tightly over its bones, with its bones pushing out against its skin. Its complexion, the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into their sockets. The Windigo looked like a gaunt skeleton, basically, right? And like a skeleton that had just kind of left the grave. That wasn't in there that long. Some shake, but no bake. You know what I mean? So, this is what they're saying it looks like. And what lips it had were tattered and bloody, unclean and suffering from a separation of the flesh. The Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odor of decay and decomposition, of death and corruption. Ooh, corruption, corruption. Yes, stinks like politics. Death and corruption. I like that. I like the way they slipped the whole corruption thing in there. So already when you think about this, you're like, ugh, you know what I mean? Is this really something I want to? Because people like to go searching for things. And what would you do? I know people that are going, hunting for a Bigfoot right now, right? They're going out there. And I'm like, what are you going to do if you find one? Like you just take a picture of it, try to talk. What if some crazy beast running at you? Already people can't handle what's out there now, a bear, you know what I mean? Even a deer mess you up. One of those Fisher cats. My friend had one on their hunting cam the other night, right in their backyard. Big giant Fisher cat. I saw one run across the road a couple of years ago. They're nasty, man. They'll hang out up in a tree and like jump right on you. Nasty. And maybe it could kill you. Maybe it won't kill you. It's going to mess you up, and it's not something you want to mess with. So yeah. So the Windigo is much more intense and all those other things. But people want to go see if I go like looking for a poltergeist, a ghost, something like anything. I'm in my realm of reality and the solid macro world of physics that we're in. I'm all right with that, right? And there's the bridge you build, the things you can communicate with. That's fine. I understand all of that, so I don't feel as threatened of anything like that compared to something that's living, especially other humans. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. All right, here's a story. One time long ago, a big Windigo stole an Indian boy, but the boy was too thin, so the Windigo didn't eat him up right away. But he traveled with the Indian boy, waiting for him till he'd get fat. He see like that Wilbur man, that movie with the pig and the Charlotte's Web. A horrible story. you know. Just get to the bacon, I guess. The Windigo had a knife that he'd cut the boy on the hand to see if he was fat enough to eat, but the boy didn't get fat. They traveled too much. One day they came to an Indian village, and the Windigo sent the boy to the Indian village to get some things for him to eat. He just gave the boy so much time to go there and get back. The boy told the Indians that the Windigo was near them and showed them his hand where the Windigo cut him to see if he was fat enough to eat. They heard the Windigo calling the boy. He said to the boy, "Hurry up. Don't tell lies to those Indians." There you go. A disinformation campaign. All of these Indians went to where the Windigo was and cut off his legs. Whew. Then they went back again to see if he was dead. You see, that's that whole thing. You're gonna cut his legs off and then leave, and then come back to see if he's dead. So of course, the Windigo wasn't dead. He was eating the juice and marrow from the side of the bones of his own legs that were cut off. The Indians asked the Windigo if there was ever been hungry like that, like that. Ever been that hungry? I mean, so hungry you would even eat gas station pizza. Like you drink the blood out of your own leg. No, I've never been that hungry. But damn, the Indians asked the Windigo if there was any fat on them. He said, "You bet there is. I have eaten lots of Indians. No wonder they're fat." The Indians then killed him and cut him into pieces. The end of this giant Windigo. So, not impossible to get rid of if you had to. Human cannibalism. In some traditions, humans overpowered by greed could turn into Windigos. The myth thus served as a method of encouraging cooperation and moderation. Others say that Windigos were created when a human resorted to cannibalism to survive. Humans could also turn into Windigos by being contact. You see, but I don't think that those cultures who are cannibals and who are into that care about any of that stuff. I don't think that they even think about it. Like mystical figures and nothing. You know what I mean? It's pretty much whatever they encounter. You know, and if they're cannibals anyway, how much further do they need to go to prove anything to anybody? All right. Taboo reinforcement ceremony among the Assiniboine, the Cree, and the Ojibwe. A satirical ceremonial dance is sometimes performed during times of famine to reinforce the seriousness of the Windigo taboo. So they're saying, "You're hungry. I'm going to do this Windigo dance. Do the Windigo. Do. Guys come out, start biting each other in the arm. Do. So that was performed during times of famine and involved wearing masks and dancing backwards around a drum. The last known Windigo ceremony conducted in the United States was at Lake Windigo of Star Island, Cass Lake, located in the Leech Lake Indian Reservation in northern Minnesota. There you go. So good. We know this already. What else are you going to tell me about the Windigo? So, here we go. So, this is all basically stuff that we know. And the description of the Windigo, every tribe, this is how I found where the Ant people were around Moab in Utah, because I read the stories of every Native American tribe that told the story about having the song in their head and how they traveled, in some cases great distances to meet these ant people. And all these tribes have a different name for them. They have sky people, fire people, whatever. They drew their pictures on walls and caves and that type of stuff. So they all tell a different direction. Some went north, some went east, west, that type of thing. But they all ended up in this area around Moab, Utah. So whatever was there, this is with a song in their head and where they ended up. And that was the third world, like in Navajo terms, they're going to say that was the third world. And this world now is the fourth world. So those people crossed from the third world and they hung around with the ant people. The ant people taught them how to survive and do all kinds, grow food and their rough conditions and that type of thing. And then they resurfaced. So that Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, which isn't very far from Shiprock or any of that, Chaco Canyon was the meeting place for all these tribes to eventually come together and trade with one another, make deals, even make laws, and kind of have the beginning of a democracy is what they had going on. So anyway, these are all descriptions from different tribes, different types of people, different areas, and whatever of what they saw on the Windigo. All right, the Algonquian, hope I'm saying it right, legend describes the creature as a giant with a heart of ice. Sometimes it's thought to be entirely made of ice. Its body is skeletal and deformed with missing hips and toes. If you go to I have like the banner, for the show and look at it. There's a few pictures I posted just of the hunting cam photos. And like I said, they could be photoshopped and whatever, But it's just interesting to me that that's kind of the image, of what. And they have all kinds. I mean, you can look all day long on these hunting cams and weird things that they've caught. And sure, a lot of it's bunk. Anyway, the Ojibwa describe it. It says it was a large creature as tall as a tree with a lipless mouth and jagged teeth. Its breath was a strange hiss, its footprints full of blood, and it ate any man, woman, child who ventured into its territory. And those were the lucky ones. Sometimes the Windigo chose to possess a person instead, and then the luckless individual became a Windigo themselves, hunting down those he had once loved and feasting upon their flesh. There you go. So, according to the legends, the Wendigo is created whenever the human resorts to that cannibalism. So keep that in mind. If you, if you don't want to, if you want to avoid being the Wendigo. I don't know. Could that also be the abominable snowman? I mean, in some cultures, you hear all these stories. They're saying it's tall like ice and this and that and whatever with the sharp teeth. I think that you could describe a lot, even your Sasquatch. Maybe not the ones in those pictures, not the real true descriptions of their arms and legs and exactly how they walk. That's some weird stuff, man. So, and then you know what? There's others that say they're 15 feet tall and once had been human but transformed by a creature into magic. There's those giant skeletons that they found all over the world and these digs, putting in roads sometimes or archaeological digs, and then they're 14, 15, 16 feet tall. You know, so enough for people to cover it up. I mean, something that they didn't want to share, but I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole nother show in of itself. So, but I think all these stories eventually come together, you know, and there's people online that actually talk about these Windigo encounters, recent, not like from years ago. So, and this is one. I'll share this with you. It says so. Back in 2019, I remember there being a big uproar of unknown creatures roaming the forest, like Bigfoot and skinwalkers. But this story isn't about them. This story is about probably one of the scariest things I think I've ever heard about: the Windigo. A few months ago, after one of my friends, Jacob, mentioned this big uproar, I went to go see him since I had been away enlisted in the United States Marines. I had gotten back after being discharged, and one of the first things I did was go and see him. We're having a good time, and he brought up the idea of going out and a little hangout spot that his ex girlfriend took him when they wanted to get away for a few hours. I have to put this in there. These girls always know these spots. Years ago on Long Island, man, this girl was telling me about, I told her about my Montauk experience on being up at the point, what they call Camp Hero. I didn't even know it was called that back. Didn't know anything back then. I was a teenager, and and had some events at Montauk with a friend of mine in the middle of the night. And it was this girl at this club, and she told her the story. She's like, "Oh yeah, that's the Montauk boys, and maybe the Montauk experiment." She's like telling me all these things. Then she's like, "You ever hear of Pilgrim State?" I'm like, "Pilgrim State." She's like, "Yeah, it's a psychiatric center, and there was a big portion that was closed off. These huge buildings." So she's like, "Let's go there right now." And she had this sister. So we all just piled in a car, the four of us actually. It was the two of the girls and me and my other friend, and we went to Pilgrim State, walking like sneaking through fences and walking through this thing and up in there, and hearing screams in the place and whatever, man. The girls. If you want to find out where the secret places are, just ask girls. They know. So this dude says he decided why not. So he grabbed his gun and they went out into this extremely secluded area and started messing around on an old dock that was there. So it had been pretty much forgotten by the looks of it, poorly maintained, and some boards were almost completely rotted through. So about 30 minutes into their shenanigans, Jacob brought up the topic of the Windigo. The name sounded a little scary, even for me, because the guy's a Marine and scream Windigo in your face and you start crying. That's not good. So curious, I asked him about it. Perfect setting, right? You're on a dock that looked like it belongs in Saturday, Friday the 13th, or whatever, Jason coming out of some. And, or was that the other one? Yeah, Friday the 13th. Nice night. You guys chilling, telling stories. Best time for stories like that, man. The best time. That's why you gotta tell little kids scary stories. They're around the campfire and whatever. I mean, not to the point it's going to scar them for life, but scary enough where they could be scared. Because there's a time where you're not going to be scared anymore, unless like something scares you, things scare you in life. I mean, certain people don't have a fear anymore about anything, so you know you're lucky to be scared when you're young, especially if it's something fake and stupid. You know what I mean? When to go, I don't know how fake and stupid it is. So this guy said he said that if you go into the woods and said Windigo 3 times, you will come across the scariest thing you've ever seen in your life. Me calling his bluff, I told him to prove it. See, this is like the start of every one of those movies, man. To this day, I wish I hadn't. We started walking on this little path that led deep into the thick woods close to the Alabama state line, middle of nowhere. We walked maybe 20-ish minutes and decided that they were in a good spot. He said, I feel like it's worth knowing that it had been raining a lot over the past couple of days. So the ground was completely saturated with water. I turned to Jacob and he dares me to do it. So I stood there and in complete silence, the rest of the forest was almost silent as well, besides the tall pines swaying in the wind, shushing, shushing above our heads. I added that in there. I'm kind of, I'm spice it up a little bit. Eh? Reluctantly, I slowly started to say it. Wendigo, Wendigo, Wendigo. Then nothing happened. I let out a silent sigh of relief. The fact that nothing happened. One thing about mine and Jacob's friendship is that we loved it when one of us proved the other wrong about something. Like a marriage, eh? In our friendship of 10 years, I think it was one of the first times I had proven him wrong about anything. We started to talk a little bit and of stuff back and forth to each other. And then we heard a noise in the distance. Me, still having the reflexes I had from the Marines, immediately snapped towards the direction of the noise. We were just then turning. Yeah, they teach you that in the Marines to run at trouble. Run at trouble and get blown up. Yee-hoo. Most of us people run away from that stuff, man. I guess it'd be a weird army if they ran away from each other, but nobody would get hurt. Can you imagine the two sides showed up with all their weapons and everything, and then they just start running away from each other? Oh, that's the war I can handle, man. How many casualties today? None. Everybody ran away. Well, that's good. We'll go back tomorrow. Talking about maybe 10 a.m. Something like that. So this guy had his reflexes and he snapped towards that direction. He said, I started to move closer to the noises. And then shortly after, we saw a few coyotes running across our path about 30 feet in front of us the other way. So already you know that the coyotes are scared. They're running past you. Oh, and you're sitting there with your marine reflexes, like, that's weird. I breathed another sigh of relief. I see now. Now that's an omen. Breathe sigh of release. Coyotes come running at you. But the relief didn't last long because I knew something was up. I didn't know what was up at first, but I just knew it was time for me and Jacob to leave. You see, that's what I'm saying. That feeling that you get when you know you've got to get the hell out of there, man. And when you get that feeling, those are your spirit guides telling you to go. Your instincts, everything about you, get the F out of here. You don't belong here. You got to go. There's danger. Something's going to happen. Go, right? As we turned to leave the woods, all of a sudden, a tall pine tree started to groan and creak as it started to come down. Noticing this, and in the moment of pure instinct, I shoved Jacob forward as the tree came falling down, crushing him. I didn't like him. Just kidding. Just kidding. He didn't kill his friend. How dare you? How dare you think that? It came falling through the rest of the branches and landed right in between us. Jacob let out a cry of terror. Ah! As the tree landed, and I hopped the tree to get to him. Jacob, are you okay? Yes, I thought that tree was going to crush me, and you put your marine hands on my back and pushed me nice and hard, and now I survived. I could feel his heart pounding like a drum as I put my hand on his smooth chest. Ba-ba-bum, 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 ba-ba-bum. Jacob, are you okay? I grabbed him. I grabbed him by his shirt and yanked him to his feet. He was still terrified. He shit himself, still practically crying. I can't. All right. As I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Move, Jacob! Fucking move! Get out!" I spun him around really hard, causing him to fall to his knees. I don't like this. This is going very Brokeback Mountain for me, man. I quickly got him up, and we both started to sprint down the path. Not running, sprinting. Keep in mind, they weren't power walking, or they were sprinting down the path, back in the direction that they came. I didn't dare look back, and neither did Jacob. I was sprinting through the woods when a familiar sound came from behind. Jacob, Jacob, come quick. It was the sound of Jacob's younger sister, Olivia. He turned and tried to get past me. The whole time I was screaming, Olivia! I stopped him and said, Jacob, look at me. It's not her. Do you hear me? It's not her. Just then, another pine tree started to buckle. I saw it just in time to tackle Jacob down and get him on the ground, and both of us nearly crushed. I screamed at Jacob once more, Go, get out of here, go now. And I was screaming that I pulled my gun from my waistband and aimed it right at his sister. Yeah. I aimed it down the trail in the direction of whence we came. Jacob made it to the opening of the trail and turned back and noticed I was still aiming my gun down the trail. He said, Bradley, get out of there. Come on, hurry. I turned and started sprinting towards him, not running, sprinting. All right. As I made into the clearing a good 50 feet, I turned, and Jacob and I both saw it. He said the thing we had ushered into showing itself, the Windigo. It stood about 9 feet tall on its hind legs, and there was practically no meat on its bones. It had really skinny legs, even skinnier arms, and its skin a pale white, almost like a vampire's. A vampire who was sprinting. But the thing I noticed the most about it was its eyes, a vibrant blue, almost like lightsaber blue from those you see like Star Wars. Yeah, the glowing eyes. See, people talk about that, man. Having had enough fear, I raised my gun and fired at the window Witigo, Jacob, not sticking around to see if I had killed it during, and ran towards the car. I turned and did the same thing as he passed me. This was the first experience that I've ever had with Indigo. He prayed and prayed and prayed and all that stuff. I don't know about praying going to help you. I'd rely more on the gun than the prayer, honestly. Uh, and then he has dreams about it all the time. So he's scarred for life, man, So, yeah, I think that, you know, there's a lot of stories out there like that, right? And people don't even want to share it because they don't know what the hell they saw, what they did. I mean, I'm in the business of trying to believe people, you know. If people, because, paranormal, UFO, any of that stuff, you're always going to have a large group of people that are nuts, and or they don't know what the hell they're talking about or what they, I mean, I can't tell you how many discussions I've had in the past about crystal skulls. And the fact that not one of them was ever found in an archaeological dig, they all came about in souvenir shops down in Mexico and South America in the late 1800s in that area. If people want to believe in these things, that's fine, right? But you can't say for sure what they are, can you? I mean, you can have a belief, but without tangible evidence, the belief comes down to a story, which is muchly religion. You know what I mean? Organized religion. You have the same type of thing going on. So, but with these stories, the encounters of people, the Jersey Devil, you hear about that all the time, right? And there's people who went looking for the Jersey Devil. They didn't find it. They don't find anything. The Mothman, another one. There's all kinds of legends and all kinds of things. There are people in California, Utah, and also the Carolinas seeing pterodactyls, right? And they see them up in the air. They got video of them. They hear them crying. "Ah, ah." They describe them to the teeth. And then you have the ones who will dismiss it. Oh, there can't be pterodactyls. Why can't there be? It's a big Earth. I mean, it's getting smaller in a lot of terms, but as it gets smaller, things get sussed out. You don't think that they could survive in small numbers over a certain amount of time? There's definitely the notion that you have to have a community to survive. So when someone says to me, Bigfoot, I'm like, okay, does the Bigfoot have a community to survive? Is it just the one dude running through the woods, looking at cameras? You know what I mean? Like, I got to this crazy. I made this woman. Well, she was already nuts. I think I made her more nuts because she went and posted this material of this this uh, this film crew who just happened to be in the woods, who just happened to be rolling their film camera, who just happened to see the Bigfoot, right? And it's really crappy, footage, and it's all full of just kind of flaws in the film and that type of thing, artfully so, right? Like intentional, as far as I see. So I just kind of looked at the outskirts of it, and I'm like, why would this be, and why would that be, and why were they there? Why were they shooting such expensive film, especially in the middle of the woods when they weren't looking for a Bigfoot? They were doing something else. There was nothing there, And then they just happened to see it, and this thing looks at them and then looks away. I don't know, man. It just sounds ridiculous without any kind of real investigation, and then you can't say it's real. You can just say that it is what it is, until you notice it's real. But that's the thing. What is real? When people talk about UFOs, aliens, sure, you'll have your people that say they've had alien communication or they've been probed or whatever the hell the story they tell. I mean, Muhammad, you know, the one who basically wrote the Quran, right? Muhammad told stories about being visited by the archangel Gabriel among others, and being taken out and see the world, other civilizations, future civilizations in the world, and then out into the universe to see other civilizations. Had given him this knowledge. Muslims today don't really practice what he preached. They've kind of made it into a whole different thing, and there's a whole bunch of different schools of thought that has separated from the original material. But there's a lot of cultures where they tell the story of talking to that sentient being, or something of a higher level that gave them some kind of information to go into a certain direction. They believe that Nikola Tesla was visited multiple times, and when he was, he had that's when he got the notion of AM FM radio and signals, and if anyone's trying to contact us from space and all this other stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of that when it comes down to communication. But you can have a video of something up in the sky. You'll never determine what it is from a video. I don't care how good the shot is. I don't care. I mean, they've got pretty good shots and videos. They've got those Navy planes that were chasing them down, when these UFOs are harassing the Nimitz. And that's not the only time it's happened. It happens all the time that these ships get followed, the airplanes get followed, or messed with in some way, kind of playfully. It's always type of playfully. And then you heard the pilots. I mean, if you've seen the video of them chasing these things down and excited, now they're trying to say it was just a shadow that was on their video screen, a shadow, even though they saw it with their eyeballs. You know what I mean? So this is the government trying to cover stuff up for whatever reason they do. They do. You know, it really comes down to the only time it's going to be real for you is it when they land and pop the hatch and they say, "Here we are, and this is what we do." And hey, you guys are messed up. You humans, you got to change things around. Humans can't get along now, right? Why would any kind of advanced culture want to talk to people? I mean, would you? I mean, what are you going to get out of it? Really, what are you going to get out of it? Maybe some stories of the Windigo, which I'm sure they already know. It's probably them. That's probably some rogue thing or whatever. What do you think the chupacabra is? You don't hear much about the chupacabra anymore, do you? There was a lot of stories, especially in Puerto Rico, down in even in Texas, down in South America. There were stories, but now you don't hear them as much. But I think that just like anything, unless you're on a one-on-one basis and you can communicate back and forth, or dissect it, you're not going to understand it. So you can look for the Bigfoot. I don't know. Is it worthwhile? I mean, I've heard a lot of stories, and you really have to have that community. You know, Plus you're talking about living outside in harsh conditions. Sure, bears do it. They go live in some kind of bear den, right? They actually have a pretty interesting life, man. They hibernate. I'm into that. Come out in the spring. So I think that you guys need to be careful when you're messing around in the woods. And if you're interested in any of this, definitely do a search for the webcam footage of these things, because it's just really it's really interesting what it's become from the original Native American stories to what the depiction is now. When you look at like the cartoon renditions of what Wendigo is, they have the horns and they have different, sort of the same as those pictures, but a lot different. They more look like a deer or something like that. But I like it. And they also, it's interesting, the whole ley line thing. A lot of these stories came from regions where these ley lines, the ley lines that run around the earth, intersect or intertwine, and or they have a bigger presence than other places. So, I read stories from people up in Vermont that there was a group of hikers years ago. They're hiking up this trail, and some of them went missing. Like they walked into an invisible door, they were gone. And then when the rest of the group tried to get them or investigate or call to them, it was gone. So I mean, what do you think that is? And there's a lot of stories about people that go missing, and not just from being stupid and being on a trail and slipping and falling or getting lost or whatever. I'm talking about situations where they just went missing. They're gone, for no apparent reason. And you get that feeling. Even the guy, that was skiing. Now they're trying to say that he had a ride from a truck, a tractor trailer, and then dropped him off from New York to California and dropped him off, still wearing his ski gear. I don't know. Whatever. The guy has no recollection of any of that. He never had any kind of psychotic episodes. He wasn't trying to fool anybody. But are there magnetic doors? Are there things? I mean, there's things that we certainly don't know about, and this is certainly a magnetic world. And as these, the magnetic poles are changing now, they're moving as these things happen. Do you think that any of these doors are going to be opening up? You know, so that's the thing that I think about sometimes, and it seems to be activities picking up, especially with all this negativity going on in the world. You know what I mean? That you can always count on activity to pick up when that happens, when there's not a peacefulness, and there's no peacefulness right now, not anywhere. So uh, I say pick up a book, read some stories about the Windigo, read some stories about the skinwalkers, skinwalkers, and I mean I know people who live in New Mexico that tell the stories, and there's no reason for them to make these things up and tell the story. These aren't even hoaxers. They're just people who are living their lives, going to work, coming home, seeing the skinwalkers run across the road or whatever. Hey man, as oddly enough, it's also one of the areas in the U.S. where they mine a lot of uranium. So whenever I look at things, especially paranormally, I like to know the makeup of the land and what kind of stuff is in there. You know what I mean? So and there's all kinds of uh, you know metal properties, even stone that moves electricity differently, and that so when you know the lore, you know the story, you know the history, you know the makeup, the geology, then you can definitely know the rest of it, right? And finish the sentence. So as for me, I'm going to end the show there. Watch out for the Windigo. They're out there looking through your window right now. They're window go. You get it? And I said enough times, you're probably going to come visit me, have the Windigo hanging out and knocking down some trees and whatever. And you know what? If you ever been in the woods by yourself, it's to me, I like it. It's a very peaceful experience. I haven't been spooked in the woods. The only time I was spooked was Montauk Point when that whole thing happened. But you know, that was spooked in a different way. But I'll just say this: no matter where you go, there you are, and always know your way out. Trust your feelings, and when your feelings say go, you go. All right. I'll see you guys next week on this here show. Bye.